Everyone, and on behalf of Sona School of Management, I welcome you all to this webinar on statistical tools for business research. And about the speaker today, she is Dr. N. Nithya, Associate Professor, Sona School of Management, Salem. And now over to the speaker for this webinar. Thank you.
Hello, good morning everyone. Good morning Dr. Kamal sir, am I audible now?
Yes, ma'am, you are audible. I can proceed, please.
Yeah, sir, thank you so much. So, very good morning to one and all on the board. A warm welcome from Sona School of Management, the webinar team. And I'm really very glad to present for the day on statistics for business research. You always know the hot topic of research anytime. So I just take a minute to share the PowerPoint so that we can start. If the slides are visible, I can start further. Can anyone say if it is visible or not?
Ma'am.
Super. So to start off with the statistical tools for business research, a small introduction on myself. Me, Dr. Nithya from Sona School of Management, having help from the statistics background. I did my UG, PG, MPhil in statistics, and then out of interest for management and more of applied statistics in management, I shifted my career towards management and I did my doctorate in management in the area of total quality management. So the combo of business and statistics has always been very interesting and very meaningful. So with this small introduction, I just wanted to get into the session. And this session we have tried a bit different because this session will not be a monotonous or a single channel way. It will be more of interactive. So you guys can just check into your chat and give the answers, because though there are slides of 50, it is more of repeated slides. So the answers would be discussed, like the discussions would be based on the finding the statistical test. So it will be more of an interactive one. So just hoping for a very great session. I'm just stepping into the first slide. So this is our session plan. So the session plans goes like this. We'll be starting with the prerequisites for a data analysis, a general prerequisites, though we won't be dealing deep into it. We'll be just listing what are the very important prerequisites for a strong, meaningful and interpretable data analysis. And followed by that, we'll be just discussing on the broad classification of data analysis and the structure of it. And the highlighted one in red is the session for the day. We'll be dealing with norms for choosing a statistical hypothesis testing, which is a very basic and most widely used, most widely spread statistical tools for a social sciences front.
Ma'am, the slides are not visible, ma'am. Only the... now it's okay, ma'am.
Okay. And then, as usual, at last it will be a question and answer session. So getting into what, the first one would be prerequisites for data analysis. I just wanted to give 6 points, starting from clear research objectives. And needless to mention, this is a very basic and backbone of any research. And I would always say the clarity in research objective should be there even in the beginning of even drafting the questionnaire, because that is where you will be making a very sound analysis. Once you make a questionnaire and then digging back to research objective or just searching for a tool will not make any meaningful interpretation. So making a very clear objective in the beginning would help us to go for a proper questionnaire, so that we will have a very, very relevant and suitable statistical tools. So research objectives has to be very clear And it has sometimes I would say research objectives has to fall in line with the statistical tools what you're going to use. So even while drafting a research objective, you should know for the first objective what tool I will be using to meet the objective 1 and what tool I'll be using to meet the objective 2. So like this, you should be very clear in the statistical tools what you'll be applying on research objectives. So that becomes a very important prerequisite for any strong data analysis. And then having done the research objective, obviously the questionnaire has to be very strong, meeting the research objectives. Especially I would count the scales, what kind of data you are collecting. Are you going for a nominal, or are you going for interval or ordinal, whatsoever. The questionnaire has to be very, very friendly with the research objectives, and every construct in the research objective has to be met meticulously in the questionnaire. And the third important, very important point, the decision on sample size or census study. I have seen maybe in an industry where there are, when they are doing an industry study where there are only 100 or 150 or 300 employees, when they are doing employee studies, when I go for a sample of 30 or 50 or 100, will not make a difference. When it is number of 300, it is always better to go for a census study because we are doing a research only for the particular industry. So there is always a bit of confusion that always I should go for a sample size. No, even we can claim a census study taking all the population into count for our research if there is a time available and if there is the size which is manageable in nature. And most cases when you are going for social sciences researchers or a public survey, you cannot control the population size. You know, it is very, very huge in number. It runs in thousands and lakhs. So in that case, it is mandatory that you have to go for sample size. And determining the sample size, one of the very important technique which every scholar or researcher should know. I would give two ways here. There are two ways. One is technically or scientifically you can calculate the sample size, and this I would recommend in terms of clinical research. If at all we are doing a clinical research where the results are very, very sensitive and the implementation of the results would be making a much of difference in terms of life of a people or profit of a company, where it is very sensitive, it is always advisable to go for a technical sample size determination. There are formulas involved in it, and if we deal with that, that will be in another session. So I'm just leading with the information here. And if you are going for a small time frame research, I mean doing a research in 1 month, data collection in 15 days, 1 month, or doing for dissertations, all that, you can take up these support of the online sample size calculator. There are a lot of techniques also available, say G-score, and sample size calculators are also available. Maybe I can just show you one example on that front. I will just again share the is the web page visible now?
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah, you can see sample size calculator. This is one from SurveyMonkey. It's a website. Even apart from this, there are a lot of sample size calculator being available. So this is all about your population. When you know a rough number of your population, when you are aware of a rough number of population, even when you are doing a research for a state or a district or for a particular town for that matter, there are a lot of digital data being available to give you a rough numbers, like what is the population size of Tamil Nadu, what is the population size of India, or any state for that matter. Say if I'm going for a sample, a population size of 5,000, and this is what the confidence level. What is this confidence level is left to the discretion of the researcher, but always the thumb rule says 95% because that's how the whole formula has been defined in statistics. But even if you want to go for a very sensitive, very, very close, accurate researches, you can go for 99% even by picking it. Or if at all you're doing it research for a bigger, geographical horizon, like you're doing it for the whole India, you can't go for accuracy of 95% or 99%. In that case, you can even take up 90%. So this is up to the discretion of the researcher and the nature of the research. So I'm just going with the thumb rule of 95%, and this is margin of the error. This margin of error is the amount of deviation that the researcher is allowing in the research findings. So this generally we would claim 3% is always advisable, so that the research interpretation can be quite relevant to apply it or make it as a decision. So if you just see this line, for a population of size 5,000, when I allow 95% of confidence, when I claim my accuracy to be 95% out of 100, and I'm allowing a margin error of 3%, the sample size is automatically generated as 880. But generally, I see people giving sample size 50, 100, 150, like a round number. That doesn't make any technical meaning behind it. When you go with this kind of at least a minimum level of calculated or determined sample size, that will make the research more meaningful. And in terms of publication with a lot of good journals, this citations like telling that we did you got your sample size through some calculation, that makes bit sensible and meaningful. And if I just increase my confidence level, you can see the sample size being increasing. I hope you can see the difference. So when it is 95, it was showing it as 880. When I'm just increasing the accuracy, it is showing that the sample size required is 1351. So even if I reduce the margin of error by lesser, I just want to go for the very accurate stuff, and it just gets increased. So I think now you would understand why always your the guide or the supervisor tells to go for a better or a bigger sample size. More the sample size will be higher the precision or the accuracy of the results. So this is what I wanted to show you online, and this is quite available not only in SurveyMonkey. There are a lot of online sources available to calculate the sample sizes, and technically G-score analysis is also there, and then random table is also there. You can also use that for making your sample size relevant. And once you are doing this kind of analysis, you should be very well planned for making your research, because you know very well that time makes a difference in terms of data collection. So I would count time is very important when you're going for your data collection as well. And so I'm just getting back to the slides. Is the slides visible now? Hope it is visible.
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah, good. So I think I've done with the clear research objectives and then how important a questionnaire is. And even here to show you a questionnaire, I just take it up to another model questionnaire, which is very, very simple in nature, which we recently framed for our student. I can also show you that maybe after this two discussion. So sample size and census study, you can decide whether you're going for a whole population study, or you can choosing a sample size or a sample study where the size really matters with the analysis. Why I'm emphasizing so much on sample size is because when there is sufficient sample size, you would get a better answer and you would get a very right answer. So having a sample size of 50 for a population size of 5,000 would give a completely wrong answer sometimes, and you just go by that for decision making, it would not be relevant to the market or industry for that matter. So sample size is a very important part in any analysis for that matter. Though it is prerequisites, these are all very important in its own way. And these two are people, all the people who have dealt with this research would know how the reliability and validity is important. And again, as I told you, this is another ocean in the research area, and reliability and validity has to be checked very properly. And I would again tell you two ways. One is the theoretical way of managing it, and second one is the technical way of reliability and validity. When you want to deal it technically, you can go for a lot of tests. There are a lot of tests involved in reliability, means the consistency in approaching the questionnaire, like all the people are taking your question the way it has been intended. So for reliability, you can rely on just Cronbach alpha. You can go with test to retest method or Spithoff method. There are a lot of methods available, and the most widely used method for social science is Cronbach alpha, and people would know that. And coming to validity, I wanted to emphasize more on this because in many of the research papers we found the equal importance was not given to validity as it was given to reliability. But actually validity is more important in giving the validness or the correctness of your questionnaire or your data set for that matter. So for validity, again, there are technical stuff and theoretical format. For theoretically, two things would help you to go for a strong validity. One is obviously the review of literature. The review of literature, the research construct used in the review of literature or in the background study when you cite that in your research, that is nothing a great valid statement that you're giving for your own research or your own questionnaire. So review of literature is one of the very important part for making your study a valid. But no, not that much of importance were given to reliability, I mean, review of literature in the point of validity. That is one. And then number two is expert opinion. I would always say whenever we make a questionnaire or whenever we make a theoretical framework or whenever we make or reduce some kind of research constructs or simply research variables, it is always better to go for a discussion with different people of the domain, maybe people of different, the same expertise. That really makes your research instrument very valid one. So these two, review of literature and expert opinion, would really make a remarkable impact on making your instrument or making your research valid. And coming to the technical part of testing your validity, there are a lot of technique, and the most widely used is the factor analysis construct validity. So when you go for the factor analysis, the factor loadings will tell how seriously and how effectively each and every statements of your questionnaire is getting mapped to your research construct. Thus, the statement taken in your research is really mapping to your research construct or the research variable. And validity has to be in fact shown or deliberately commented on the paper, which would make the paper really very good one. And whenever we go for validity, taking into account the recent literature would also give a lot of support in terms of raising the correctness of the instrument that is being used for your particular research. So reliability is all about consistency in the present, I mean, understanding that statement, and validity is all about correctness. And if you find the validity is getting lowered, or if you find the validity is doubtful, it is always better without any hesitation going for a restructuring the questionnaire or restructuring the schedule or restructuring the research construct as such. So there is ample amount of time that has to be spent before going for data analysis and the prerequisites. So having touched upon reliability and validity, I just want to give just glimpse on the measurement scales. I recently found there is very less importance given to measurement scales. Maybe before that, I would say what is measurement scale. This is what maybe when we discuss about nominal data, ordinal data, interval data, and ratio, people understand it. But when you commonly call it as measurement scales, we will not be able to understand it. When we make a questionnaire, what nature of the data that you are making in your questionnaire, or what kind of data you are recording in your instrument. It can be a schedule, or it can be anything for that matter, your interview sheet whatsoever. That is very, very important, because this measurement scale is the route for extending to your analysis. Every analysis in statistics is based on the nature of the data used. When we simply use a nominal data in all your questionnaire, you have to be limited to a very, very restricted kind of statistical analysis. So depends on the hello, is there any disturbance? Hello, your voice is breaking. Is it all okay? Shall we proceed?
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah. So now is the slide visible?
Yes, ma'am.
That's great. So this is what people has to be very, very clear and cautious while making their questionnaire, because only based on the nature of the data, the intensity of the statistical tools can be picked. So in that sense, the nominal data or the ordinal data or interval or ratio whatsoever, dependent on your study, the questionnaire or the instrument has to be made on the foundation, be a very strong foundation of measurement analysis. And I will just quickly show you and then explain you there, because instead of theoretically giving you, it would be better to show a simple questionnaire, so that will be easy for you to understand. And I would not claim this a great questionnaire, because this was done by my student for the recent research on the project for his post-graduation. I just want to just throw a light on this. So you can see quite the nature of the question is quite normal. Like every time you see in any type of questionnaires, you would be seeing this kind of template or a format that has been used for the questionnaire. So when you come here in the demographic profile, you can see age, gender, occupation, region, income per month, all that. So I would count in age, there are 4 categories: less than 25 years, 25 to 35 years, 35 to 45, 45 to 55, 55 and above. This age, this gender, occupation, all these were in a categorical form. So when you use a questionnaire like yes or no, when you use a questionnaire like would you go for this or that, all this you are asking the respondent to fall into some category. In that case, your data is called as nominal data. So a data is a mere representation of a particular category. Say if it is a gender, it should be male or female, or even you can add one more column as a third gender. So there can be 3 categories, or there can be 3 groups where this gender becomes a data of nominal category or nominal in nature. When you have data of nominal, you cannot go for a very bigger or a very intensive statistical tools. You can maximum go for a count, or you can just give whether it is countable or not. Otherwise, you cannot go for a very big or a very complicated or extensively intense statistical tools and techniques. This is just a counting. So you can tell how many males are there, how many females were there, and how many transgenders or third gender were there. That's it what we can give. And I can't go for even mean, median, mode in this kind of nominal data. And that is the limitation of nominal data. So hope this is clear. Nominal data is all about just getting into categories. Of course, we can use this nominal data in your research instrument, but this cannot be the main part or a main content of your whole research. And getting down is ranking. So in this question on newspaper reading experience, the researcher has asked the ranking. How does the readers are giving preference to the columns, different columns of a newspaper. So in this case, there are 6 items being given, like a business column, sports column, national news, international news, all that. And this is all about ranking. So here in ranking, this is all about the order of preference. So when I give rank 1 to the business, that is my most preferred column in a newspaper. So this is what we call by ordinal data or ordinal scale. And in this ordinal data, again, you can't go for too much of very strong analysis, but you can go for a next level of analysis, like you can go for Spearman's rank correlation. That is what you can do. Otherwise, you can't go for it. So nominal and ordinal are always rated at the bottom of the intense statistical analysis. But of course, I would not say this is not contributing anything to research. It does contribute, but at a limited way. So first part is the nominal, and the second part is all about ranking, which is we call it as ordinal data. And then coming to the core, the essence of the research. This research has 2 variables. One is all about the features, how a paper has been presented in a hard copy and how a newspaper has been presented in a soft copy. So this particular research is all about the features of a newspaper and with the reading experience on the newspaper. These are the 2 research construct that has been used. And if you could see it here, it is in the format of interval scale, like strongly agree, neutral. So there is an equal distance. When I say I'm strongly agree, if I give 5 points for this and I would say agree, there is a difference of 1 point. So when I'm giving 5 for strongly agree, I would give 4. And here I would give neutral 3, disagree 2, strongly disagree 1. And here I can go for average. I can go tell the overall score average is 3.5. So they lie somewhere between agreeing and strongly disagreeing. Strongly agreeing. Or if my range is exactly on 3.1, I can say people are having a very neutral opinion on the features of newspaper. The same mean or average cannot be taken out here. I can't say male is 2, female is 1, I'm getting an average of 1.5. So 1.5 is a different gender. I can't claim that there. Whereas here, I can arrive at a meaningful information based on the scores. And this is what we call by interval. And there is one more scale called as a ratio. And the ratio and interval are more or less same with only 1 mile difference. Say for example, in newspaper, when I say I am exposed to newspaper and I have experienced reading newspaper, when I'm just giving this question, nobody can say I don't have answer on this. You can't say never in this particular, because this is something like experience. Or I will give some other example, lockdown. Whether you just consider the lockdown or you don't consider the lockdown, when I'm asking a question, how did you experience being inside home on lockdown, you can't say I never experienced lockdown, because that is unanimous. You cannot go without experiencing it. Anything like opinion, perception, or experience, you can't say no, or you cannot simply nullify it by zero. That is what we always have a moderate, or we always have a neutral, we always have a neither disagree nor agree. That kind of a statement where when people are going indecisive in their statement, they can just click onto that. But there are situations where you can just boldly say, I have not experienced. Say, for example, have you ever run out of money? Means to say you don't have anything on your hand. Don't have any money on your hand for the next move of your life. Somebody would have experienced, somebody would have not experienced. So it is all about money on hand. Money on hand can be something, or it can be even zero. Have you experienced nil income in a month? Yeah, you can say I have experienced or I have not experienced. So you can just give never there. So this is the only difference between interval scale and ratio scale. And mostly in social sciences and in psychological study, we would be dealing with the interval scale more appropriately. And in case of financial, or in case of clinical research, or very very sensitive research like psychological research, like have you experienced being drunk, you can say never, because it's a point where you can say that you have not drunk if at all you have not a habit of just consuming liquor. So all this was what we call it as a ratio scale. Otherwise, a ratio and interval goes hands in hand. And why I'm emphasizing so much on this is ratio and interval has a proximity, or has a chance for getting a very intense statistical analysis possible. So this is all I wanted to discuss about the measurement of scales, and I will just get back to the slide quickly. So this measurement scale is something very important. You need to discuss, you need to be very clear before getting into analysis, because when we commit something different here, you cannot go and change your data set at the end of the day. And the data set is something, the motherboard for your whole of analysis, and your questionnaire or your any research instrument has to be very well defined, discussed in advance about choosing the measurement scales. So there are 4 types of scales, and generally we climb the scales. Nominal and ordinal can be used for qualitative data, which cannot be measurable but can be countable, and interval and ratio can be used for quantitative, which can be measurable. Say, for example, what is the average interest, what is the average satisfaction level, what is the average experience, all that can be quantifiable in nature. So this is, I wanted to give it on the prerequisites. Though we have taken quite a large amount of time in prerequisites, I will always comment this is very, very important in terms of making a very strong analysis. And the last part would be the basic structure of statistical analysis, which people has to be very clear about it. So there are 2 bifurcation in any statistical analysis. One is what we call by descriptive, and other one is what we call by inferential. So in descriptive, very well, you would just simply describe what is there available in the data. You would say there are more of male respondent being a part of your research, or there are more, female being a part of your research. So it is something like telling what is there. You will not be finding anything new, but still you will be just telling what is there in the data set. This is what we call by descriptive, and descriptive will just explain but will not arrive at any kind of conclusion or a decision on time in terms of any kind of combinator or inferential stuff. And the second part is inferential, which is a very important reason for doing any research in any domain for that matter, because based on the data, based on the analysis, we infer something. Maybe I would like to throw a very, very interesting, I would say it is interesting. There are 2 big kings in India, Ashoka the Great and Akbar the Great. Hope you would agree to me. Can anyone tell me what is the difference between these 2 people? Why these kings were called great? You can even give a text, or you can just give it in the chat. Why Akbar was called great, and why Ashoka was called great? Any idea? Okay, so having not received any reply, I will just quickly get back to the discussion point. See, people know that Akbar is a very great ruler in terms of the ability to conquer. Yeah, Niveda has answered due to his conquering ability. Ashoka has a very power of great wide and spread empire all over India. But research says and history says Ashoka has recorded, documented everything in his rock and pillar epics. So anything which was documented, so the next generation or the next set of people who are coming, having a resource to get to know what is the efficient or what is the power of the people who lived before. That is the historical background. So what does it we infer from it? Whatever you do and whatever you feel like you have done something good and it is better to record it. And this is the great information that we infer from the history of Akbar. He has recorded all his achievements in terms of rock and pillar epics. Likewise, inferential statistics would tell you how to arrive at a conclusion based on some numbers. Numbers can be meaningless to everyone, but the arrived conclusion can be meaningful to all. In terms of that, inferential statistics is an important one because it gives analysis and it gives a meaningful inference from the analysis, and that is where inferential statistics has always been rated high, rated better, and used widely for arriving at some conclusions. So all the theory, whatever theory you call by McKinsey's principle or Hawthorne's theory, Maslow's theory, every theory was an output of some inferential study. They got inference from the behavior of the people and they made or they coined the theory. That is how inferential is very important. So compared to descriptive, inferential is always important and preferred always at a better rate. And that is where descriptive just generally describing how many male, how many female, what is the choice of the people in terms of flavor of the ice cream, just giving it in terms of a table or giving it in terms of chart or pie chart whatsoever, just describing it. Coming to the inferential, it is more of what? Using a sample and then giving the prediction or posting the result of the sample to the population. As I told you, when the population is very high, you can't go and deal with the population at a time. So what do? You just take up this sample as a source of information.
Hello, ma'am.
Yes, ma'am.
Ma'am, sorry, slides are not ma'am, visible.
Yeah, I'll do it. I think when we give a slide share, it is not. Okay, so this is how, based on a sample, we do analysis and we are posting the result that what we got from the sample to the population as such. This is again inferential statistics. We infer the opinion for the whole population based on a sample. And again, inferential takes up so much of intense statistical analysis. And getting to it, there are norms of statistics, which is very important, and this is the hardcore essence of the session. And research questions, as I already mentioned, the prerequisite is very important, and you should be able to define which statistical tools or techniques has to be used for the particular research. And having done that, the very important part is the statistical test assumptions. Every statistical test goes with an assumption, a condition beyond. That is where the actual statistician differs from the social scientist. So in that case, when we are able to click this statistical test assumption, you can make your own choice with flawless. So I'm just getting into the actual part of is it so far is it clear?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, is the slide visible now?
Yes, ma'am.
Choosing which statistical test to use. So as I told in the first slide, today we'll be dealing with the situation or the conditions or technically the assumptions to design which statistical test has to be used for what situation. So I'll be just dealing with 3 slides alone. This 3 slides would be sufficient for anybody to design their own statistical test. So there are 3 factors to choose a test. First one is data, the data type. Say what we discussed before is nominal, ordinal, interval, and ratio whatsoever. And then samples. You know very well there are different types of samples. There are 1 sample test, 2 samples test, more than 2 sample, we call it as multiple sample test, all that. So there are how many samples you're dealing in your research or your research situation. That is the second category or second factor which you need to keep it in consideration. And third one is the very important purpose. For what purpose you are doing your analysis. So all these 3, the purpose would be defined from your research objective, sample would be based on your data set, and data is nothing but the nature of your data. When you are very much aware of these 3, you can make a right choice of statistical test. And coming just to explain deep into it, when I call data, there are 2 different types of data. I call it nominal data and interval data. And under nominal data, there are tests like test of proportion, different, all this would be coming under, and under interval. Maybe now if you see this, it is like no mugging up. So if you have this kind of data, you have to go for, no, not necessary. You just get to understand nominal data holds these type of testing conditions, and interval data holds this type of testing possible. It can be made. So you cannot do proposition in interval data because proposition is all about count. So based on data, you can make your decision. And second one is based on sample. When you count sample, there are 3 situations that you may encounter in a basic test. But there are multivariate tests which I have not taken into consideration now. Here I am counting only univariate and bivariate analysis. There is multivariate analysis which I am not touching upon now because this needs a very strong base like univariate and bivariate. So under samples, you can expose to 3 kind of or 3 situation. Either you can have 1 sample, you will be handling 1 sample set, or you will be handling 2 sample sets, or you will be handling 1 sample 2 set of measures. Say for example, students' height and weight. So I'm having 1 set of sample of 50 students. I'm measuring their height and weight. That is what I mean by 1 sample and 2 measures. When I'm telling a height of 50 students, only 1 sample of 50, I'm measuring only height there. 2 sample means I'm having 2 set of students. Say I'm having 50 set of students and then 75 set of another students. I'm measuring height of this first set of sample and I'm measuring the second set of sample. This is how you have to differentiate on understanding. So based on samples, you will be exposed to these 3 situations for sure under univariate and bivariate. Beyond this, there is no choice. So you can very well define yourself under these 3 categories. And the very important is purpose. Max to max, this is what you would be doing in your research. You would not go beyond anything. Or whatsoever you do in your research, I can count it. I can just tell you, it will be counting in these. You would be either testing your assumption on some predetermined value or assumption value or hypothesized value, or you would compare 1 sample with the other sample, or you will compare 1 performance with the other performance that you would be doing, or else you would just seek a chance of studying the relationship. This is what you would be doing in univariate and bivariate analysis. Beyond this, there is no scope for purpose. So you can define your purpose in these 3 categories. So I'm just reiterating. First, there is a bifurcation of data. Either you'll be doing nominal data or interval data. And then on a samples, there are only 3 situations available. Either you'll be dealing with 1 sample, or you'll be dealing with 2 samples, or you will be having 1 sample set with 2 types of measures being dealt. And coming back, there is only 3 purposes available in any kind of research. So one is testing against a hypothesized or a assumed value, or going for comparison of 2 statistics or 2 values, or finally you are looking for a relationship between 2 variables or 2 or more variables. So when you are very, very clear on data, samples and purpose, you can choose these statistical tests on your own. So what we are going to do now is, actually speaking, my job is done here. From next slide onwards, it will be mere discussion on a given situation. We should decide, we all will be deciding which test has to be applied based on these 3 thumb rules. So for the purpose of a combined view, I have made a table, and this is nothing but the 3 previous slides put in one single table. That's it. Because we need to go face this slide very often. For that purpose, I have just made this slide. maybe we'll be seeing this slide very often. So I'm just throwing this, and I would request you can give your answers. That would be fine to have a better understanding. So this is one example. Maybe we can just read the question, and then we can choose a test, which test we have to go for. So this is all about researchers are interested in whether the pulse rate of a long distance runners, the pulse rate, the heartbeat differs from other athletes. Does the athletes there are different type of athletics, and in that running they have taken into consideration, and what would be the pulse rate of the people who are runners with respect to the other athletes, and there is a hypothesized value. It is being tested against a value of 60.
Ma'am, slide is not changed, ma'am.
No?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. So this is all about the research situation. I have thrown a research situation. It's like there is a study being done based on the pulse rate of the runners, and they have taken a sample of 8 runners, and they have recorded their pulse rate. And it is averagely, there is an assumption that when it is a runner, their pulse rate should be 60 per minute. So if it is less than or if it is more than, they would not fall into the category of this. So what test should I go for this particular situation? How should I prove that the average testing, the pulse rate of the athletes should be generally equal to or less than or whatsoever, as per the assumption, should be equal to 60 beats? How to go for this particular situation? How to test this particular situation statistically? This is a question here. Now, you just go back to the same slide what you have done. See the same question with respect to 3 perspective data. You just tell me, is the data nominal data or the interval data? You can question me what is the data here. That is what the very important input of any researcher. The data given here is pulse rate. So pulse rate would be taken in count of number of beats per minute. So number of beats per minute, number of heartbeats per minute, is that an interval scale or a ratio scale? That is a question arising here. And second one is sample. How many samples we are dealing in this research or in this research situation? And third one, what is the purpose behind? What is the purpose behind this particular research design? So when I count, I can tell you the data, that is a pulse rate, is actually a interval data, because that is measured. It is not a category basis. So that is something it's been measured. You can tell the average rate also. So this is the interval rate data. So as of this research situation is concerned, this particular pulse rate falls under the category of the interval data, first thing. So if it is interval data, there is a chance for you to use any of these 4 tests. You will be going for test for mean or difference of 2 mean or paired mean or regression. So now we got one bifurcation. We are using interval data. Second one, how many samples we are dealing? We are dealing only one set of sample of 8 runners. So this is one sample. And the purpose. What is the purpose here? We are testing this particular research against an assumption that runners will be having 60 beats per minute. That is the assumption. So now this. The answer for the first situation is we have to adapt test for single mean. How? The data is of interval nature. This particular situation deals with one sample, and the purpose behind this particular research question or the research situation is they are testing against a hypothesized value of 60 beats per minute. So because of this, we come to a conclusion that we have to use test for single mean against this research situation or research objective. So based on that, we can claim whether the runners will be having 60 beats per minute or not. That is what the inference would be. If you test this with the data, we'll be able to tell whether the runners will be having a hypothesized value, whether they'll be having a beat of 60 or not. As simple as that. Is this situation clear, or any queries there? Because we'll be going for.
Okay, ma'am.
Okay, if you got any doubts or if you got any information, to be added, you can just leave it in the chat box. So I'm going for a second situation. I think, in fact, you can take a call also. There is a second situation where it's all about a car manufacturer. and they did a study on random sampling. They went for interview for 1,000 customers in a new target market. They went for getting opinion from 1,000 consumers. And here the goal, again the objective, whatever name you use by, the objective
Ma'am,
is research objective. Yes.
ma'am, slides are not shown, ma'am. Yeah, ma'am, it's
Is this
okay.
slide visible, ma'am?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. So for this situation, this is the research objective is to understand there is a information given here. They are telling if the preference of the brand is lesser than 10%, they would go for giving or investing money in additional advertising and sponsorship. This is what given in this situation. You can read it again. So there is a car manufacturer and they are going for a sample testing or interviewing some 1,000 customers in the market, and they are just determining whether to go for additional advertising and promotion or not. So this was the situation experienced by the promotional team. So if they feel 10%, if they feel minimum 10% people should know about this brand. If they don't know about this particular product, they will be going for additional promotion activities. That is what the study is. So to meet this research objective, which choice of test, which test should we go for? That is what the question here. So now we have to go for data. The same three factors: data, sample, and then purpose. What is the data here? How many know the brand? So brand awareness is the data here. How many know the brand, or what is the percentage of the brand? So what does it mean? Out of 1,000, how many would be telling, yeah, I know this brand? That is what. So can I call it nominal data or interval data? So that is a question. So when you go to it, again the same slide I am displaying because for the understanding. So now we are dealing with percentage of people who would say that they are aware of the brand. In that, so it is all about proportion, whether they are aware or not aware. There are two categories of people. One, they are aware of the brand. Other category, they say, I don't know, I've not heard of this particular brand. So in this case, it belongs to category. So it goes and falls into nominal data part. And second one, sample. How many samples they have used? And they have told very clearly, they have dealt with 1,000 samples. No, that is only one sample. So it is one sample. So one sample with nominal data. So in nominal data, you can handle these three tests. And now that it is one sample, you can handle either test for proportion or test for mean. And the last one is, what is the purpose? The purpose is, if minimum 10% are aware of the brand, I would go for launching the product into the market. If minimum less than 10% say they are aware, I would not go for launching it immediately. I would promote the product further, and then I will later, bring down the product to the market. So there is a hypothesized value, that is 10%. Minimum 10% of the people should be aware of the brand. So it comes under this category very, very clearly. Nominal data, one sample, testing against a hypothesized value. So you can very well give the answer. For this particular research situation or for this particular research objective, you have to go for test for single proportion. This is what I am doing for the rest of some 3-4 situations, and how to identify the test for that particular specific situations as such. So now comes the third example. So this is all about, an experiment is conducted to determine whether intensive tutoring, it's like, coaching, intensive coaching with so much of material, and then paced tutoring. Paced tutoring means taking so much of time and, doing a very regular or a moderate teaching. So with these two randomly chosen groups who have been taught, and they have been admitted for, tested for proficiency test. Proficiency test means they are tested for their expertise, what they have learned.
Ma'am, slide is not changed, ma'am. Sorry to disturb. Slide is not changed, ma'am.
I have not made any change, madam. Okay. I should once again clearing it.
Yes, ma'am. Because you are discussing example 3, the slide was not shown, ma'am. That's why.
Yeah, I understand. Is it there, ma'am?
Yes, ma'am.
Example 3 is visible.
Visible, ma'am.
So example 3, there are two set of groups. One group getting under intensive tutoring, and other group is getting under a moderate or a paced tutoring. And we have to just tell which what is the efficiency, which group is proficient in their test, who performed better in the efficiency and expertise test. So again, I'm just using the same three principles: data, samples, and purpose. So you can tell me proficiency of a test. So it's all about marks. Is marks, academic marks, a nominal data or interval data? So obviously marks are interval. It doesn't fall into category because we have given average marks, it is measured. So marks are interval data. And here we are dealing with two set of samples. One is the intensive coaching, another one is paced coaching. So we are dealing with two samples. And the purpose here is, it's very, very given here, which is more proficient, which group is very, very proficient in nature. So we are comparing two groups, or we are comparing two statistics, or we are comparing two values: the average value of intensive coaching team and the average value of moderate coaching team. So here, under these three combinations, I would say this example 3 falls under interval category of data, deals with two sample, and they are independent because one is all about intensive, other is all about moderate coaching. And the purpose here is to compare two statistics. So with these three combinations, again, as I have given it in the chart, we will be using test for two independent means. Like it can be t-test for two independent means, or it can be z-test for two independent means. So this is how we will be choosing the norms of the test. And I have few other examples as well, like example 4, 5, 6, and 7. I think I have 7 examples being plotted here. Maybe I'll just try to finish it as early as possible. So this example 4 is on 161 people who visited a hospital for emergency in a 6 months period of time. The researcher found that 53 people who were wearing the wrist guards, and out of
Ma'am, kindly
53,
change the
6 of
slides,
them,
ma'am.
I have changed here, ma'am. Maybe for every change
No,
we have to. Okay.
I think it is taking time to change, ma'am.
Probably.
It is an example 3 only.
I'll do one thing. I will not go for slide share. I think in this case it will not be a disturbance. Is example 4 visible now, ma'am?
No, ma'am. Yeah, ma'am, it is visible now.
Okay, that's good. So example 4, it is all about two set of groups out of which 161 people. It is all about the people who wore wrist guard while playing, but still they got wrist injuries, and people who didn't wear any wrist guards, but still they got injuries. With this kind of combinations, it is the research objective here is all about, is there a difference between the ratio of wrist injuries, like whether only people who have worn the wrist guard are getting injured or not getting injured. In this case, there is a combination of two sample set. So here we have to go for understanding what is the proportion of the people, those who got hurt amidst of wearing the wrist guards, and those who have not got hurt even when they wear the wrist guards. So in that case, we have got to the research situation. So the total is 161. Out of 161, 53 were found to wearing it. So what does it mean? Remaining 45 have not worn it. So like that, this remaining 180 have not worn wrist guard. Out of this 53, 6 of them got injuries, and then out of this 108, 45 got wrist injuries. So the data that we are dealing with this particular research situation or research problem is the ratio of wrist injuries. How many got hurt on their wrist injuries? This is the proportion of wrist injuries. So when you go for this, what kind of test can be applied here to understand the difference between the ratio of wrist injuries? So again, the same 3 factors has been used here. Now it's all about ratio. How many got wrist injuries? So it is all about, I have got hurt, I have not got hurt. It is all about a category. So coming to data, it falls under the nominal data category. And coming to sample, we got 2 set of samples. One is those who wore the wrist guard, those who have not worn the wrist guard. There are 2 set of samples. The purpose is to compare Hello? Hello?
Yeah, ma'am, it is audible.
Am I audible now?
Yes.
Hello? Is it clearly audible now?
Yes, ma'am.
Is it clear, ma'am, now? Somaya, ma'am, is it clear now?
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Okay, so I think we stopped here. And so coming to this, it's all about proportion. Those who have got wrist injuries, those who have not got the wrist injuries. So there are two groups, got hurt, not got hurt. So there are two groups, that is nominal data. They belong to category, and we deal with two sample. Is the screen visible, ma'am?
Yes, ma'am.
So, and then purposes, we want to understand the proportion, like how many got injured amidst of wearing the wrist guard, how many have not got injured amidst of wearing the wrist guard. That is what the proportion. So, for this situation, for this research problem, we'll be going for test for two proportions. So, I think we are running out of time, so I will be no rush up to finish these two examples and then I'll close the session. Example 5. A crossover trial investigated whether eating oat bran is something like, you know, the food for lower cholesterol level. So it is all about a research on whether consumption of oat bran will be lowering the serum cholesterol levels. So something we are dealing with this particular problem is the cholesterol level, and you know very well how we will be measuring the cholesterol level in the cubic cubic should be counting
Ma'am,
it.
not audible, ma'am.
So can I proceed?
Yes, ma'am.
So because the network connectivity issue, every time I'm getting problem. But I mean that, and it quickly try to finish it off before everything goes to a very bad level. So we have taken 14 individuals. All the 14 were given, I mean, the 14 were given, this particular diet for 2 weeks. They are testing cholesterol level. That is, as I told you before, level would be counted in the blood in terms of number of units of the glycerides. So it is all about the interval data, because they count it as a 350, 420, 120, like that. It will be counted in 1 cubic centimeter of a blood drop. So in this way, we'll be going for measuring the cholesterol level. And for this, can somebody tell me which kind of test we'll be going for?
Is it one sample, ma'am?
So the cholesterol levels or interval data, and there are samples. Of course, two samples are there, but I would say
Ma'am, it is not audible.
சார் என்ன சார் பண்ணலாம்? க்ளோஸ் பண்ணிட்டுமா? I've gotten, sir. I've gotten. Yeah. Hello, is hello.
Ma'am, still it is not audible, ma'am.
My voice is not audible, ma'am.
Yes, ma'am.
Hello?
Yes, ma'am.
Oh, okay.
Yes, ma'am. Now it is clear.
Okay, okay. That's. I think there's a lot of network issues here. I couldn't get connected continuously. So, is the slide okay, ma'am? Now is it visible?
No, ma'am. It is not visible.
Okay. It's taking time. Probably now.
No, ma'am.
Again, I have shared it.
Yeah, ma'am. It is visible.
Okay. I've reconnected now. A quick discussion on this. A particular 14 people were given a diet and their cholesterol level has been recorded before the diet and after the diet. So coming to the factor combinations, in the data, the cholesterol level is the data, that's interval data, and we deal with two samples, but here the category is the same 14 members were given diet before and after. So it is all about the category of one sample and
Ma'am, it is not audible.
so this comes the category of test in our stuff. Is it audible, ma'am, now?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Is the slides visible now?
Yes, ma'am.
Is the example 6 visible?
No, ma'am. It is in example 5.
Okay. I made it now.
No, ma'am. Not yet.
Is the example 6 visible now?
Yes, ma'am.
So combination, relationship or association study done among 500 individuals. You want to understand whether highly, educated people are married or unmarried, or married or not well educated. Whatsoever is your assumption, you'll be going for this kind of situation. So this can be one other research objective. And maybe now again we can go for the same study of 3 factors: data, samples, and purpose. Among the data, it is all about a category, whether they are married or unmarried, whether they are highly educated or not so highly educated whatsoever. So it comes under nominal data. And coming to sample, it is all about 2 set of samples. Here you should understand, one group is all about marital status, other group is all about educational level. But both these measures are taken for a same set of group, say 500 individuals. If you see this previous slide, you would understand this 500 people, 500 individuals have been categorized based on their mental status and educational level. So if you go and see, this is all about a nominal data with one sample of 500 people measuring of 2 measures, that is mental state and that's all about the last. We are just heading towards the last. It's all about data. The data is snowfall, and you know very well this data of global in terms of temperature. So here we are dealing both the data of interval scale, both the data global warming as a temperature and snowfall as an inches. We are going for regression analysis. So with this, I think I've taken almost 15 minutes extra, and again, this lot of network issues also, adding trouble to the presentation. Just, I'll close it. Is this slide visible? Correlation and regression.
Your regression analysis visible, ma'am. Slide is visible, ma'am.
So I think it is not getting sorted. So
Now you're audible. Can you speak? ஒரு நிமிஷம் பேசு.
hello.
Yes, ma'am, please. Ma'am, you're audible. You can speak. Nitya, ma'am.
So actually, I was almost done, but then the network is really very poor that I couldn't accommodate continuously for even 2 minutes or so. It's showing. So I think with this, we will close the session for now. Respect to email IDs or, this network issue is not letting us to go beyond it. Even I couldn't share these slides. But probably almost I've done with the 90% of the presentation slides. For him to share to you all.
Okay, ma'am. I'll share the presentation slides along with the e-certificate. Right. Thank you, ma'am. Thanks for your valuable time in sharing your presentation. Right. Other participants, please do fill in the certificate link. And people who are commenting in the chat box, if possible, please comment in English, and we are not able to understand your language, and that language is something different. So please do comment in English so that we can reply for each and every text messages. For people who are claiming your e-certificates, see, e-certificates will not bear any signatures. So in case if you are interested in getting an e-certificate, do fill the forms and then we will mail it to you within 7 working days. And thank you one and all for joining, and we'll close the meeting now.